Let's talk about some of the leadership skills gap that leaders face. One of the things that we have found is that there is a difference between what leaders think they're doing and their perception of their leadership style and leadership skills and leadership performance and what the people that they work with are experiencing. So there is a gap in perception here. And not only perception, but it's also a gap in skill between what it's really required to perform in a leadership role and what most of us are equipped with. We're not taught to be a leader. This is not one thing we learn in school. And even if we do learn in school, what we learn is more about management and managing system and managing people. But peoples and systems are not really stable things. Life is difficult and things will come your way and they will not be as you've been taught in that leadership course. So to really thrive in a leadership environment where things are changing and new technologies are coming, there are some skills that are needed. And so one indication for you to identify what are those gaps that you need to fill is to look at, are there some areas where you struggle? The areas that you struggle in, are those concentrated in kind of in one side? Is it more the strategic, the planning, the systems, or is it more the people side, motivating, coaching, and mentoring your team? Like where is that? Like when you see the challenges that are coming your way, is there a pattern that you could see there? That's a good indication, and probably you should start there. But then also I suggest that you involve your team. In other words, you get some feedback from your team. Now, I know there are 360-degree assessments on the market, and you could use one of those, but we have found that, even though we tell people that it's anonymous and they don't know who said what, chances are you have a small team. And then if you get 3 or 4 answers in that 360, you could probably identify who said what, right? And so that creates an environment where people are not really comfortable in telling what they think. And so you're not going to get a lot from that 360 assessment. What I would suggest you do is you talk to your most trusted 2 or 3 team members, people that know you the most, people that work with you the most, people that are more open to really share with you some of their views and their feedback. And so 2 things here. Number 1, we have found, and research backs this up, that when you ask people for feedback, what happens is that you put them in a situation which is more or less a critical mindset. So in other words, they're going to tell you the things that do not work, but they are detached from the situation. We have found that when you ask people for advice, so in other words, instead of saying, I'm looking to improve my leadership skills and I know there are some gaps that I need to fill, so could you provide me some feedback? Where should I start? What should I work on? That's one way to say it. But we have found that if you ask, could you give me your advice on what would be some areas that I could work on? When you use advice rather than feedback, all of a sudden advice draws people in and people feel that they are participating to a solution. So they're providing an advice rather than providing feedback. And that's much more effective, and the feedback or whatever they're giving you, the advice, will be much more constructive, and you're going to be able to work with that. And second thing is, when they give you that feedback or advice, you are not allowed to reply to that, you're not allowed to answer that, you're not allowed to try to say why and give a because and a reason behind it. The only thing you are allowed to is to ask more questions to help you understand the situation even more. So you could use open-ended questions that help them kind of open more and then really understand more of where they're coming from with that. Like, what's their perspective there and how is that perceived from their perspective? And if you do that, you'd be ahead of most of the leaders that do not really take the time to look at those gaps. And if they do, then they don't have a really good strategy to try to fill those gaps.